afternoon, beautiful people. It is Thursday, May 25th. It's after 6. Just got home from work. Busy day at work. I had to be in early, so didn't get a chance to do my video this morning, and so I thought I'd do it this afternoon. We're gonna go over to the funeral home, pay our respects to our friend Deb. But I happened to notice this, and they walked from way over there by the river over to here just since I've got home. And look how big those babies have gotten. I think it's 2 groups. I don't think that's one, because look, there's 4 adult, we'll call them. You got this wanderer over here. And then we got this little guy. He's not so little. But I told you the other day when I came home, they were just digging for worms. Like, it was weird. Like, they had been there for hours. And I'm using the obstacle course because they have left their mess everywhere. Oh, I come this way and the goose is going the other way. It's a maze, just trying to figure out how to walk through here. But it is International BU Day, and you know from my previous videos, you should always be you. Everybody else is already taken, so just be you. Don't be like everybody else. I am such a firm believer in that. I know I say that in every video, but it's the truth. Like, don't need another Triha. I can be Triha. You be somebody else. But really didn't have a lot, but I made the print a little bigger so I could read it while walking better, because it's rained off and on. On this day in 1807, a grand jury indicts former Vice President of the United States, Aaron Burr, on charges of treason. He was Thomas Jefferson's vice president, and he's famous for his duel that mortally wounded Alexander Hamilton. But that isn't why he was indicted. He was indicted on treason. And I kept trying to look it up, and I really couldn't find exactly all the stuff. Like, it sounded like there was a couple things, and of course I did it quickly. So, but it's just one of those weird kind of, and also, that ended his political career. Think about that, the duel. Not the treason part. That definitely ended it. But to be indicted for treason, especially at that time in America's history, that was a big deal. Like, but we literally jumped from 1807 to 1976. Wings began a 5-week run at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for silly love songs. We all know silly love songs, right? I think that people would have had enough of silly love songs, but I look around me and I see it isn't so. Some people want to fill the world with silly love songs. And what's wrong with that? I'd like to know. 'Cause here I go again. It's one of my favorite Paul McCartney songs. I am not a huge Beatles fan. I don't know if you noticed, though, walking, the railings have all been changed. They were working hard that day we were here. They did a good job. I don't know. It just looks like regular lumber, though. You'd think they'd use treated lumber. Maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know. But this is something that got me laughing. In 1979, the first Ace Cable Awards came out, and Emmett Otter's Jugville Band Christmas by Jim Henson and HBO won. You know, I'm a Jim Henson fan, and having a nephew named Emmett, and I love river otters. That's right up my alley. It's one of my favorites. And then in 1980, the arcade game Pac-Man is released. And we all know who Pac-Man is, you know, because we all got Pac-Man fever. Pac-Man fever. Yeah, I'm on the other side of the bridge. We don't normally walk on this side, but I thought, what the heck? And it gets us away from the gooses over there and let them get their dinner. So this is the beach on this side. If we're going to call, that's what everybody calls it. I don't know if they added those rocks or not. I would think they did, but I don't know. It's just, I found it weird that they did this in the swing. I'm surprised there hasn't been damage. But there's always people out here on this swing. Like, it's just too cold today. Oh, there's a robin. And then on this day in 1982, the number one song was Ebony and Ivory, also Paul McCartney. It is Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. And it's Ebony and Ivory live together in perfect harmony, side by side on my piano keyboard. Oh Lord, why don't we? I'm an awful singer, I know. I know you're commenting and watching because I know. And then it goes on, you know the rest. We all know that people are the same wherever you go. There's good and bad in everyone. We learn to live when we learn to give each other what we need to survive. Together alive. And by the way, the sidewalk's just as bad over here. But, and I'm watching where I'm walking. Like, do they just use the sidewalk? Like, oh, no, there's some in the grass there. Can you see them over there just hanging out? Man, they're everywhere. We had ducks the other day. We had 3 ducks, which are usually on the island. I made a comment one day that we have no ducks around here anymore. And I didn't know they were hanging out here on the beach instead of over there by the castle. But on this day in 1985, View to a Kill, I think it was the 14th James Bond film, and it was also the last one starring Roger Moore, was released. I think it starred Roger Moore, Grace Jones, and Christopher Walken. Well, you know you're in trouble with Christopher Walken, right? And I am not a James Bond fan, but I have to give kudos. Maybe you can argue this in the comments that you disagree with me. That has got to have the best song for a James Bond movie. It's Duran Duran, and I'm a huge Duranie. And it's A View to a Kill, of course. And it says, nightfall covers me, but you know the plans I'm making still. Oh, here's the ducks. Overseas, could it be the whole earth opening wide? Sacred, why a mystery gaping inside. I'm a huge Duranie fan, especially the early Duran Duran. I had somebody tell me today they heard View to a Kill today, and they heard Girls on Film. There's a widow bunny in there. There's a widow bunny. I like widow bunnies. Do you live in here, little bunny? There you are. Hi, Widow Bonnie. I don't know if you can see her in there. But, and then on this day in 2011, I remember it clearly, I was heading south. My nephew Al, or Alex, he prefers Alexander. He's my Al. Was graduating from high school in Kentucky. So there's two male mallard ducks over there. And we were driving down, and we ended up spending the night in Louisville with his older brother, my nephew Bobby, and his wife Andrea. And they had one of those Taco Bell dogs, Lily. And they lived in a condo in Louisville, or just outside of the city of Louisville. And oh look, there's a fisherman. And got down with no problems, like, which is a rarity because it always rains. And probably because I was only going to Louisville. And that night, we were sleeping, and I still didn't know about this other part, is the Joplin tornado hit that day. Of course, as you know, it was an EF5. It's hit Joplin, Missouri, killing 158 people and wrecking buildings, causing 2.8 billion in damages. The costliest and seventh deadliest single tornado outbreak in U.S. history. That night, while we were sleeping, and I don't want to say it was the Joplin tornado, but it was the same system hit Louisville, and we had tornadoes that night. And then we got up the next day, and we went to now, at that point, I had never been to downtown Louisville. We always just passed by. And then, so we went into the Louisville Slugger Museum. We kind of walked downtown, took some photos, and then got back on the road and was heading to Murray. And like always, I'm crossing the Tennessee and it starts raining. And I think I've told this story before. And it was raining so hard, I'm like, I've got to pull over. And we pulled over, we went inside this building. And I didn't know until I got inside, it was a Dollar General because it was raining so hard. And we're in there, and they got the radio on. And the sirens are going off for a tornado. And it wasn't far from my sister Darlene's house. And so we did that. Got up was the next day graduation? I think the next day was graduation. And so he graduated from Callaway County High School, and graduation was at Murray State University, and they locked themselves in the gym overnight, the seniors, for a party. And the next morning, I don't remember what happened, whether we had my mom's card for Alex or what, and we'd forgot to give them. So Dar and Ben met us at the hotel, and they're like, hey, we're all going out. And I'm like, no, it's supposed to be bad again. I want to get on the road. And so we get on the road. We start heading north. And that was my first time stopping in Scottsburg, Indiana, which I now go to every year because my oldest nephew lives there now. We stopped at the Subway. Quickly got out, had a sandwich, and then got back in the car. And as soon as we hit Marion County, which is kind of Indianapolis, radio went off for tornado warnings, and they were dropping all around us. And we ended up, we got to Fort Wayne, and the storm chasers and the news media is all traveling in the same direction. My advice is, you see that, just pull over. But I kept going, and we got to Auburn, and we went to Penguin Point, and they had a TV, like a giant TV actually, and it looked like a hurricane over Indiana that day. There was tornadoes all around, and Auburn's up not far from the border. It's like we had our, I think that was the first time I had been to Penguin Point since I was a kid here in Owasso. And so we call my mom, like, hey, yeah, we're here, it's storming, we'll get on the road as soon as we're done eating. And we hit the Michigan border, the sun was out, and it was nice. So we had a nice rest of the way home. But you know, and that makes me think, you know, like London and them over the weekend, you know, the storms that hit them, our thoughts and prayers go out to all those people. You know, as I said in a different video on another channel, I was talking about storms and tornadoes, and I said, you know, it would be great if tornadoes could hit, just go in a field, not touch somebody's house or kill somebody, but they don't. And, you know, we were talking here about it because we had the tornadoes last week. You know, none hit here in Shiawassee, but, you know, we had 10, I think. And I guess it depends what you consider the date, because on the west side of the state, it was Thursday. And then for us on the east side of the state, it was technically Friday because it was after midnight. But yeah, like it's, you know, I can't, like, we get, not that we haven't had EF5s, which they really don't happen anymore with the new classification. But, you know, just 2 years ago was the Weberville, I think that was a 2 or a 3. And then there's, the more I learn about the Beecher tornado, where that was an EF5, and like they didn't have the warnings that we have. And people were at the movie theater, and they left the movie theater and drove into the tornado. There was a guy working at GM or probably Buick, it's Flint. And they let him off from work because the storm had hit his house. I think it killed his entire family. Like, you know, it's just, you have to be weather aware. Like, it's probably in the 40s by now. Maybe low 50s right now. You know, I keep telling my friend that, you know, we could have a chance of frost. It's the end of May. So, but with that, like I said, we're heading to funeral home to pay our respects to our Yooper friend Deb. Oh, I hear a mourning dove. Just, you know, it's a holiday weekend. I know a lot of people have taken tomorrow off. You know, I get it. You want to have fun. Life's busy and hectic. But be safe. And tell the people you love them, because there's going to come a time when they're not there, and you're not going to be able to tell them, and you're going to regret that. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, because my car is here, and Wilma always parked right here. As a matter of fact, last year for Halloween, she put a witch in her car so it looked at me. Loved Wilma, never told Wilma I loved her, and she passed away a couple months ago. I'm sure she knew I cared about her, but that's Carolyn's car. I tell Carolyn every time I see her I love her now. Maybe this is an older, wiser thing, but just tell people you love them. They may need to hear it just as much as you need to say it. So with that, God bless. Have a happy Thursday, and we'll talk again.